Welcome Scott Pioli to kind of help us out this time of year because we need all the info and insight we can get, and Scott is our guy for that. We are 1 week out from the draft. What are teams in their draft process thinking at this point?
Brandon, I think this is the time where teams have now transitioned from the evaluation portion to the strategy portion. Now, from an evaluation standpoint, most of that hay should be in the barn, so to speak. The only thing that teams are doing from an evaluation standpoint is getting last-minute medical info, maybe getting some character information for guys that have some sketchy past. But the only other evaluation portion is some of the stack busting. And teams that are looking at tackle, for instance, they're comparing Evan Neal to Ickey to Charles Cross just to get that done. But that evaluation essentially should be done. What we're getting into now is the strategy portion, Brandon. And what happens now is this is when you're sitting back, making calls, gathering information on what teams are going to do or what you think teams are going to do. You call some of your friends around the league, your closest confidants, or maybe not even friends, but just good business partners. And you're trying to get an idea without revealing too much information, but gathering information to see how you're going to move around the draft board or whether or not you can sit still and get what you want and get what you need. So again, there's two phases, the evaluation portion and the strategy portion. Right now is the time for strategy.
I'm curious, I want to follow up on that when you talk about strategy here, maybe involving some of the smoke signals we see with the media course, maybe fake chasing a person or not. Is that also part of it as well?
You know, Brandon, I think it's not as big a part as sometimes the media makes it up to be. I think there's certain people, certain teams, when they first get going, being general managers or head coaches, they think that that's a really important thing. But the reality is that more often than not becomes time that's wasted that can be used to do much more important stuff. So the smokescreen stuff is not something, teams that I've been involved with, some of the GMs and head coaches that I know really well, they don't spend a whole lot of time doing that intentionally. Because again, that's time that can be used, doing more productive things. Now, what happens sometimes though is when GMs or head coaches or people within personnel departments are talking with media members, cultivating those relationships, they feel like they have to say something to those people because they're friends. They don't want to dismiss them, say, I got nothing to tell you. But what happens is those things come out as smokescreens. And I think sometimes it's more unintentional than intentional. Again, where someone is saying, hey, what do you think you guys are going to be doing here? You don't want to reveal that information, so you're not intentionally sending a smokescreen, but it happens.
Try to keep some of those secrets in the closer we get, of course, to that draft day. The other storyline, of course, going across the NFL is the tale of the unhappy player. Players skipping workouts or contract disputes, guys kind of scrubbing their social media. That's a new age generation thing. As someone who has experience with this, what's your take at this from afar?
Brandon, essentially what this is, it's all a part of the negotiation. When players are doing those things, they're telling people that they're unhappy. And it's this generation's temper tantrum, essentially, and their way of communicating frustration. I mean, I totally get it. But for the most part, front offices and head coaches don't care about those kind of things. What they do care about is the sign that the player's unhappy. What has to happen during these times when players are doing things like this, you hope that there's not too much damage done, not only by the player, what they're saying out loud, towards head coaches, general managers, the organization, owners, and flip that around, you hope that the team doesn't say or do anything that's too disrespectful. Because what you want to do is try to get things done with that team, and the team wants to get it done with the player without doing too much damage, right? Without harming the reputations of anyone involved. So this whole thing, I think that what this is a byproduct of essentially is there's this greater empowerment that players now have. Players are now getting involved with front offices and coaches and helping or having opinions on who they should select in the draft or in free agency. Players are much more empowered now, and this is part of it. So these things that are happening right now, I also don't pay too much attention to it this time of year. Because what happened in these last couple of collective bargaining agreements is players have been given a lot more free time. So just because they're not showing up for off-season workouts doesn't mean that there's a problem. I mean, they have the right to stay back. And I think team chemistry and teams coming together is a little bit different with this generation. I'm an old guy, so the way that we came together as a team or the way we did team building was when more people were in person during the off-season. Younger players now know how to connect, and they find ways to connect to become a team in a different way now. So to me, these players holding out, which isn't really a holdout this time of year, isn't that much of a problem. I think it's a time for people to communicate and hopefully come together.
Of course, this is something new. It's the wide receiver market. Deebo Samuel, of course, the latest yesterday, demanding a trade. Hey, Kyler Murray did it not too long ago, scrubbing his as well, wanting to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. But I'm curious, you said it's a different generation. When you were in that front office, how did you kind of navigate that and kind of keep both sides barred together and not get to this point where you're asking for a trade or more money?
Yeah, well, there were a number of times where players asked for trades privately, and you tried to get things done or you tried to clean up the situation privately. The best way to do it for everyone, again, to cultivate or continue the relationship and or save face or to not damage people's reputation is to keep things in-house. Now players come out with social media and they do that, and it makes it a little bit more uncomfortable because, again, egos get damaged, feelings get hurt when the social media attack or the scrubbing happens. So to me, it is a little bit different. I would just think that you have spent time with a player and the player would feel at least confident enough to come to you and to speak, like an adult. Some of this stuff that does happen, it reminds me, I've got an 18-year-old daughter, so I do understand it, where the venting is done publicly. They don't realize how much that venting that looks almost junior high school or high school can damage other people. So you just wish that they would keep it closer. But now on the flip side, we've also seen times where teams leak information to the media and do damage to players. So much of this happens on both sides. I think what really has to happen is both sides need to be respectful of one another and just need to show one another that they're not trying to harm the other. And that's when things get done, and that's when everybody can win.
In the end, stay off social media. Like my mom and dad used to tell me back in the day, don't you touch that phone. Don't share our secrets out there to everybody else. Clearly, this generation did not listen. Scott Pioli.
Well, family business is family business, Brandon, right? That's the way it should be.
Exactly. Keep it in-house, like The Godfather, That's a lost term there. All right. Scott Pioli, as always, my friend. Appreciate you breaking it down the closer we get to the draft, and a lot of insight there, that front office perspective that he always provides. But, hey, don't forget the guys in the Pick Six breaking down the latest mock draft as well as some of those prospects. When it comes to those edge rushers, we talk about the offensive line, a big need, those other guys on the other side as well. Download and give them a follow.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.